Ajahn, when it is a neutral feeling, how does one discern whether it is ignorance or one has entered the equanimous state?
Um, it but basically you don't really have to worry too much about it. It's not as if you have to think about that, because what we are really aiming for is the neutral feeling which is at the very end of the path. What we're aiming for is a neutral feeling that comes in the fourth jhana state. In terms of worldly things, I don't think it matters so much. Just what really matters is whether your mind is wholesome and unwholesome, and that is measured by your intention. It is measured by your defilements of the mind, not so much by the feeling. So don't worry too much about the feeling. It is possible to have negative, kind of unpleasant feelings, but a wholesome mind state. Yeah. For example, you can have a pain in the foot. Doesn't mean you have anger. Maybe you have compassion for yourself. Yeah. So you have a positive mind state, yet pain in the foot. The feelings are not so important. Whatever they are is fine. Just intention is what really matters.
Dear Ajahn, to enter deeper into meditation, do you mean to give up sensual desires temporarily for the purpose of the meditation, or even outside of meditation?
Well, it temporarily is enough. Yeah, I mean, if you just give it up during meditation, it will be sufficient. But the point is, of course, that if you give it up more outside, it will be easier to give it up when it comes to meditation as well. So the two go together; they're not separate. But sometimes that is what happens. People go on a retreat, they have a good meditation, they give up the senses completely, and then they grasp onto them again when they come back after the retreat. So it can be done temporarily, but basically, if you have these deep stages of meditation, you will start to be much less interested in that world of the five senses, because you start to really understand the downside of that. Yeah. So it really goes together. They're not really separate in that way. So just do it gradually. Remember that giving up the five senses is not something you do like that. It is a gradual thing, yeah? And you start by keeping the five precepts. When you keep the five precepts, you're already giving up the five senses to some extent, yeah? You're giving up access to certain things. If you keep the 8 precepts, you're giving up even more. If you are reducing your attachment to the world, actually you are reducing your attachment to the five senses. So just go slowly, stage by stage. Don't try to think it out beforehand, because if you try to think it out, it's very hard to understand whether it's good or bad or whatever. You have to experience it. It is that gradual experience that tells you that these things are actually worthwhile.
Ajahn, is being born beautiful or handsome good karma or bad karma? If good karma, why do so many beautiful ladies in history end up with very sad stories? Beauty seems to bring them bad luck. Beautiful ladies nowadays also seems to be obsessed with their beauty, with excessive cosmetic surgery.
Yeah, everybody, not just women, men too, are obsessed about, going to the gym and being muscular and being masculine. It's the same thing. Both genders have the similar kind of problem, I think. Yeah. Yes, it is true. Sometimes being born, beautiful or handsome or whatever can be very detrimental, because you become obsessed with that beauty. That becomes what is important to you. And you get a lot of good feedback. People say, oh, you are very beautiful. And then you feel proud of that. And then you attach to those things. And it's more difficult to let go. So sometimes being not so beautiful, being a bit more plain is actually is okay, because you don't get so obsessed with these kind of things. There's always a downside. Everyone wants to be beautiful, but then when you're beautiful, you actually find out the downside of being beautiful. And then you think, wow, that was a big mistake. So we dream about things that are not actually all that useful for us. Isn't that kind of strange? You want all of these things, and then you become really wealthy. But then when you become wealthy, you become really afraid, because you become afraid of other people stealing from you. And you start to shut yourself off into your house, and you become isolated from society and people around you, because you are afraid of the world outside. And then you become suspicious of other people, and then you have fewer friends. these things happen all the time, yeah. And there is always all of these side effects that we have no idea about when we want the things of the world. The worldly things are not anywhere near as interesting or exciting as we think they are before we get them. So there are some big problems there, yeah. And so is it the result of good karma to be beautiful? Yes, probably. Yeah, it is the result of good karma. You have to do good things in the past to be able to become beautiful. But it is the result of a good karma, but it's also the result of not understanding what really is valuable. Why do you want to be beautiful in the first place? Is it really any point in that? So it is a mixture of good karma and ignorance coming together, and then you become beautiful in this way.
Ajahn, is it necessary to contemplate all 31 parts of the body, or can we just reflect on certain parts of the body?
You can reflect on whatever works for you, but it is important to reflect on things that actually have the effect. Yeah, remember, the effect is to counter the attraction to the body. So reflect on things that actually work. Don't just reflect on things that don't have any impact on you. If you just reflect on your teeth and your nails, well, maybe it's not going to do very much, yeah, because teeth and nails are kind of neutral. They don't really put you off so much. So try to reflect on something that actually works. That's the important thing here.
Ajahn, what do you mean by channel ground contemplations are for those with special interest? And can we use 31 parts to deter one from committing adultery?
I don't know. It's very, I think very often what happens when you use the 31 parts of the body, it can have a temporary strong effect, so which lasts. If you are successful with that meditation, it can put you off sensuality for a while. So it can be maybe nice to use at the beginning of meditation if you have a strong tendency to desire or something. But it also tends to fade quite quickly. As soon as you start going about your worldly things, you forget about it and you go back into your old habits very quickly. So can it be used for not committing adultery? Maybe it can be used, but I think it is just a general development of the path, making a commitment to virtue, yeah, understanding the dangers of not following the virtuous path and of kindness. That is the power which enables you not to commit adultery here. I don't think using the 31 parts is the best way to do that.
Ajahn, if I understand correctly, Ajahn Brahm term of right intention is more of right motivation. That is, understand where it is coming from. I'm not clear about the differences between the both.
It is similar because right intention or right aim or right purpose is all basically the same thing, different ways of saying the same thing. Right goal. It's about heading in the right direction. But when you are heading in the right direction, you have to be motivated by something. Yeah, it is the motivation that makes you heading in the right direction. You are motivated by right view. Really, right view is what motivates you, and that motivation is just another way of talking about intention. Really, it is the thing which underlies intention. So, to me, a more literal, accurate rendering of the Pali word, I would say, is probably right intention or right goal. But right motivation is just another way of thinking about the same idea, really. Yeah.
Ajahn, in respect of imperturbability, would appreciate if you could share some of your experience on how to tame the subtle latent tendencies which arises during meditation or during day life.
The subtle latent tendencies, it is all about the sort of things that I've been talking about now. Yeah, the subtle latent tendencies is just to understand the world in the right way, understand that the world is not so interesting, that the world is not really, there's nothing there to be had. That's the kind of the tendency, latent tendency to desire, the latent tendency to ill will. Remember that people are like robots. People are like programmed machines. They don't know what they're doing. They're walking in darkness. They are deluded. Why get angry with a robot? Why get angry with a red traffic light? When the traffic light goes red, do you get angry with the traffic light? Maybe you get a little bit irritated because it's kind of very inconvenient, but you don't get angry. You don't go shouting at the traffic light. You don't grab the traffic light and give it a good shaking. If you grab the traffic light and give it a good shaking, starting to yell at it, you're going to end up in the loony bin, right? They're going to lock you up because you're nuts. So that's what's going to happen if you do that. So this is but people are like red traffic lights. Yeah, sometimes people go red, they get angry. Other times they are green. Yeah, they are fine. So that is the way to think about people. And it's just these very simple ways of looking at the world, yeah, again and again and again, actually have a very profound effect. This is how you can overcome almost all kind of ill will and anger, because you realize that you are not really dealing with agents that independently want to harm you. They are just these kind of blind machines walking around, not knowing what they're doing. And then you start to kind of be on the right track. So just use some of the ideas that I've been talking about. These are powerful all the way through all the kind of underlying tendencies and bad qualities that we have.
Yeah, Ajahn. How can I be more compassionate towards myself? How can I let go of ill will in me?
Okay, so being compassionate to yourself is very similar to being compassionate to other people. Yeah. Usually, if you have real compassion for others, you will have compassion for yourself as well. One of the things is to see how conditioned you are, yeah, how trapped you are in the way you are, how the world around you kind of causes you to be what you are, and you cannot really step out of that role. You cannot step out of who you are. So you have compassion because you understand, actually, wow, it's actually difficult to be me. Yeah, it is not easy. I've been brought up in this way, in this society, with these conditions, with these past life experiences, whatever. It is not easy. Nobody in this world, for no one, is life easy. Maybe a few people who it is more easy for, but generally speaking, everyone has plenty of difficulties. So have compassion for yourself, because actually it is not your fault. You are trapped in a sense by all of this past experience and things. But also, yay, there is a way out. Yeah, remember there is a way out. So when you have compassion and you know that there is a way out by practicing the path in the right way, then you have a positive kind of compassion, not a negative empathy where all you do is feel the bad feelings, but a positive compassion that gives you an impetus to practice in the right way and move forward. Have compassion for others, have compassion for yourself. It's the same idea, because it is an understanding of human nature, how as human beings we are caused and conditioned to be what we are, and we cannot be any other way. So remember that the thing that blocks us from compassion is the feeling that we are responsible. Yeah, I am responsible for this. The moment you say that you are responsible for your own suffering and you should have known better, at that point, you cannot have compassion for yourself anymore. At that point, you have judged yourself as not really being worthy of compassion because you think you should have known better. You shouldn't have known better. It is impossible to know better. All you have is these tools. The fact that you made the mistake means that you didn't know better. If you had known better, you wouldn't have done it. It's as simple as that. Yeah, so always give yourself the benefit of the doubt. Understand the conditioning that is working on you at all times.
Ajahn, the hindrances, is it really necessary to get rid of sensory desire if they don't hinder us? Example, simple sensual desires like coffee, cheesecake, beautiful soothing music, to more complex ill will against rapists who rape their own daughters, granddaughters, where we aren't capable of radiating metta and karuna towards them.
Yeah, again, remember, this is very gradual. Yeah, don't try to be the perfect Buddhist straight away. These are gradual things. I'm not saying that you should not have coffee. I drink coffee all the time. You've seen me, how bad I am. I'm terrible. I have lots of coffee. So don't try to be a saint straight away. Do things gradually. Do the things that are really bad first of all, and don't give up the sensual pleasure. It's not about not enjoying your food or having a cheesecake or having a cup of coffee or even enjoying entertainment sometimes. It is really how we do those things. Do it in the right way. If you meditate and you fantasize about food in your meditation, then you have a problem. Yeah, then it is bad. But if you don't fantasize about food in your meditation, you're probably okay. Your attachment is not going to be great. Of course, if you are hungry, well, then of course you're going to fantasize about food because that's what hunger is all about. But if you're not hungry, you probably forget about it and you're fine. So don't think that when we talk about overcoming sensual pleasures, it means not enjoying the world. It doesn't actually mean that. It means how we enjoy it without too much attachment. You can still enjoy the world. One of the things that was very eye-opening for me about the suttas was a sutta where the Buddha says, he says that when you come out of a jhana state, you enjoy the world more than you did beforehand. And the reason is because when you come out of a jhana state, your faculties are incredibly sharp. You're able to experience the world in an entirely new way. When you see the world, you see the colors are more beautiful, the shapes are more beautiful. When you hear the music is more beautiful. When you taste the food, you may have the most simple kind of food, like broken rice and sour gruel or something like that, something that doesn't sound very appetizing. And you think it's like the food for a king, yeah, or a queen. That's what it feels like. Or you have the very simple rag robes and it feels like the best cloth that you can possibly have. This is what the Buddha says. But so you experience the world of the senses in a very, very beautiful way, but you're not attached to it. You don't crave for it. You don't have this kind of wrong attitude towards it. That is the issue. So don't stop enjoying your food. For goodness sake, enjoy your food. Enjoy the things of the world, but don't do things that are stupid. Don't do things that are immoral. Yeah, this is the most important thing. And then reduce your attachment a little bit. Yeah, don't have so much attachment to the things around you. And then as you reduce your attachment to your house, to your belongings and these kind of things, then you are on the right track. So you have to get the right balance here. Sometimes people think, oh, if you're a Buddhist, you have to kind of just eat white rice and drink water all day. That's all you can allow. But if that's all you do, you're going to have a terrible life. You're not going to enjoy anything. And then you're going to convert and you're going to give up Buddhism very, very quickly. So enjoy. It's a gradual path. Do things stage by stage.
Ajahn, I'm having problem with drowsiness and notice I'm attached to sleep. And there's aversion to meditation. And this has to do with lack of patience. There's also this nagging feeling of giving up and lack of confidence that I can achieve those higher states of understanding like other meditators achieve. Please help.
Well, first of all, you are no different from anyone else. We are all the same. We all have the same 5 khandhas. We all have a body. We all have a mind. Some of us have more defilements, some of us have less defilements, but essentially we're all the same. So if other people can achieve these things, you can too. You are just like everyone else. If you don't have a mind, well, then you have a problem. But if you don't have a mind, you wouldn't be writing this question. So I can assume that you have a mind. So you're probably, it's just a matter of knowing that if you practice the path in the right way, you will get the results. So what you have to ask yourself is, well, what are the things on the path that you need to focus on? What are your weaknesses? Yeah, it may be that perhaps the reason why you're feeling sloth and torpor is because you haven't purified the earlier aspects enough. You haven't got enough right view. You haven't got enough kindness. You haven't got enough generosity. You haven't got enough metta. You haven't given up certain bad habits. That could very likely be a reason for very strong lethargy and tiredness and dullness and drowsiness. Yeah, that's often where it comes from. So look in the right place. Don't think that meditation must happen because you just have to do it in the right way. No, you have to put the root causes into place. Only then is the meditation going to work. So make sure you look at the right thing. It could be that maybe meditation is not right for you now. Maybe you have to come back to it in 6 months or a year, developing other things in the meantime. That is possible. But meditation is not impossible as such. You just have to do it at the right time. And when you do it at the right time, then it will work. Put the causes into place. So be wise about this. Don't think that you have to do a particular thing because other people do it. Know yourself in a deep way. Know what actually you require to make progress.
Thank you, Ajahn. Ajahn, could you also please explain Yoniso Manasikara again? In addition, could Ajahn please give some guidance on how to contemplate Yoniso Manasikara under the context of the 12 dependent originations? Thank you.
Okay. Wow, this sounds like another retreat. We have to do another retreat, Bobby, because that takes a long time to do to do that. But we only have 5 days, so we can, unfortunately, otherwise we cannot extend for another 5 days, unfortunately. But the idea of Yoniso Manasikara is, the root idea is to understand how you attend in such a way as to have more wholesome qualities of mind. If you attend in the right way, if you attend with Yoniso Manasikara, the bad qualities go down, the good qualities go up. That is how you know that you have Yoniso Manasikara, wise attention. Yeah, you know it from the result. The result is that you have more good qualities, less bad qualities. So, for example, if you meet somebody and you look at them and you think, wow, instead of being angry with this person, let me have compassion because they have many bad qualities. At that time, you have Yoniso Manasikara because you are reducing your anger and you have more compassion as a consequence. You know that is Yoniso Manasikara. Or you think about, you are sitting meditating and you think, oh, you're thinking about the holiday, you're going to go overseas. And you think, wait a minute, why am I thinking about this holiday anyway? Often these holidays are not that interesting. Often they are just stressful. Often they just lead to all kinds of things. Anyway, it's just more of the same when I travel overseas. It's just a slightly different food. What's the big deal? Going to Paris, going to Beijing, going to Tokyo, going to London, going to New York. Who cares? It's basically all the same anyway. And I may not even get there. Now is the time I'm meditating. Who knows if I ever get on that trip overseas? Yeah. And because of all those uncertainties and all those negative things, you forget about that idea about your holiday overseas. You're using Yoniso Manasikara to remember the uncertainty, the downside of that whole thing, and then you give up the thought. This is how you use Yoniso Manasikara. It just means thinking in a way that reduces the bad qualities and builds up the good ones. Or you think, wow, a few days ago, I did this act of generosity here. I helped support so-and-so in this and this way. And then you feel good about yourself because you know that you did an act of kindness. And you feel this warm glow inside. You don't feel, and it's not an ego trip. It's just this feeling of warmth inside because you know that you have done something good and something kind towards someone else. That's a beautiful, positive quality. You are reflecting with Yoniso Manasikara, understanding that action in a good way. So this is Yoniso Manasikara, and it starts from the very beginning. When you start off coming into the becoming a Buddhist, yeah, that is the first stage of Yoniso Manasikara. I think, wait a minute, this Buddha is pretty cool, yeah, he's saying some cool stuff. Okay, maybe I should listen to the Buddha. In the beginning, you're not so respectful. Yes, you think, yeah, the Buddha. I think that the Buddha is cool, so you haven't kind of understood this idea of respect yet. So you kind of get this slightly wrong. And then afterwards, you think, wow, the Buddha. Oh, the Buddha is really marvelous. And then you carry on practicing the path, yeah, stage by stage, purifying yourself, becoming more and more wholesome. Every stage of the Buddhist path, every time you improve, every time you move forward, is an act of Yoniso Manasikara from the very beginning until you become an arahant at the other end, at the very end of it. So what about dependent origination? How do you use Yoniso Manasikara there? Well, it is quite profound. Yeah, this is a really big topic to talk about that. But basically, the idea is that when you have ignorance, when you don't understand the world in the right way, when you don't understand happiness and suffering, you start pursuing things that are going to give you dukkha, going to give you suffering, and you don't pursue those things that are going to give you happiness. So ignorance leads to wrong pursuit. It leads to wrong intentions. In other words, the sankharas, the activities that you do, are bad sankharas. They are sankharas that lead to bad rebirth, bad consciousness, bad experiences. If you reduce your ignorance, then what happens is that the sankharas, your intentions are better, yeah? Because your intentions are better because you know more about where to find happiness, where to avoid suffering. You act in accordance with happiness, so you have more intentions that are aligned with the teachings of the Buddha. You're raising up your consciousness, and eventually you get reborn in a better realm. So this is how you use Yonisomanasikara. You see the connection between ignorance and sankharas. You see the connection between sankhara and vijnana. Ignorance leading to willed activities, leading to consciousness, vijnana. Because your consciousness, your experienced state right now depends on the past sankharas, depends on your intentions. Yeah, you can see that, you can feel that directly. If you have a bad intention, you feel bad about yourself. It's as simple as that. That is the connection between intention and consciousness. Then when you get reborn, because you are reborn in a particular place, it means that you are trapped in that place for that life. If you are reborn as a human being, you will have a certain mind state, a certain body that comes with being a human being. That is Namarupa. Yeah, Namarupa, the other mental faculties will tend to be determined by where you're reborn. Then, and so on, it carries on all the way to the end of dependent origination. This is what it means, Yonisomanasikara, with dependent origination. You contemplate the links, you see how these links actually work in practice within you as psychological factors, including the idea of rebirth. That is the idea, Yonisomanasikara, independent origination.
Thank you, Ajahn. Dear Ajahn, just now in the sutta it mentioned they meditate independent, not grasping at anything in the world. Seems to me like very advanced phase of practice. Is that so? For me now, stage still depend a lot on teachers and kalyana mittas, the feeding of Dhamma. I'm still grasping at their support, guidance, and encouragement. What's your advice, please? Thank you.
Oh, that's good. You're doing the right thing. We have to know the right time for everything. Yeah, and when we start, a very important part of the Buddhist path is the Kalyanamitta. It is a root thing on the Buddhist path. Yeah, the idea of Kalyanamitta. The most essential Kalyanamitta that we have is the Buddha. The Buddha is like the root guru or the root Kalyanamitta from the very beginning. Yeah. Without that kind of Kalyanamitta at the start of the path, we're not going to go anywhere. There is no kind of, there is the whole path really stops. So you are doing the right thing. And to bring that Kalyanamitta-ship with you all the way along the path. And it's always good to have Kalyanamittas, but after a while, you start to become more independent. You still have Kalyanamittas, but you're no longer so dependent on them. Even if they were to die or disappear or move to another country or become a monk or nun or whatever, you have the ability to carry on, yeah? And this is kind of the idea of becoming more independent. So one of the tricks of the Buddhist path is to know where we should hold on. What are the things we should grasp a little bit? One of the things we should grasp is a teacher who can teach us in the right way. A good Kalyanamitta, like the Buddha, yeah? Like someone who is supportive of your practice. A little bit of holding on there is good. When it comes to the precepts, a little bit of attachment to the precepts is a good thing. If you don't attach to the precepts at all, very likely you will break them. Yeah, a little bit of attachment is required to keep the precepts. A little bit of attachment to Buddhism is a positive thing. And then as you do the practice, gradually you let go. Gradually you go up the ladder. You let go of the lower kind of attachments and you grasp a higher kind of attachment. In this way, you go up the ladder of the Noble Eightfold Path. Yeah, you attach a little bit to metta practice. Yeah, and then you let go of all the ill will and the negativity below. Then it's gradually, as you move up that ladder, you find that you hold on less and less because the attachments actually become weaker. Yeah, so it is both moving up the ladder of attachments, getting more and more refined attachments, but also the attachment itself is not as strong as you go up the ladder. So this is what you do, and this is why that passage that you're talking about in the Satipatthana Sutta, being independent of everything in the world, remember this is a gradual thing. You start off with internal, external, internal and external. That is taking you to samadhi. Then you have the inside part, yeah, originate, vanish, originate and vanish. And then you have this little part in the middle, which it's a little bit difficult to understand what that means. You know that there is a body just for sufficient knowledge, that sufficient mindfulness and knowledge. And then the very last one is to be independent of everything in the world. So this is the most profound part at the very end. There's a graduation there. Everything in Buddhism is graduated. There's a path, one leading to the next one. And this comes at the very end.
Ajahn, when we fantasize or daydream, is that craving from the sixth sense mind rather than the five senses, or are they connected?
It is craving from the mind is also connected to the other senses. Yeah, so you can have sensual pleasures through the mind. Yeah, if you dream about food, well, that's sensual pleasure. It's the mind it's the mind attaching to the sensual pleasures. So when we talk about the sixth sense of the mind, free of the five senses, we actually mean the mind which has given up those five senses completely. There is no more daydreaming. There's no more fantasizing about sensual pleasures. That has all gone, disappeared. Yeah, that is what really means the sixth sense free of the other five senses. That is when we talk about samadhi. That's when we talk about jhana. But the mind can be very much enmeshed in the five senses. Yeah, and because the mind has the ability to take the other senses as its object. That's why we fantasize. That's why we do all of these things. And this is just as much sensual pleasure as it is when we experience it through the eye or the ear or whatever.
Yeah, Chan. Is there any difference between ill will and aversion? To my perception, ill will is more aggressive kind of bad intention, while aversion could just be kind of mood and feeling towards whatever is in front. Is there any special reason the sutta emphasizes on ill will? Much thanks.
The difference is, if you look up a dictionary, aversion does not really mean ill will at all. Aversion is if you, for example, you see some food you don't like, yeah, and you feel, oh, yucky, aversion. You have aversion to the food you don't like. That is a dictionary definition of aversion. It is something that repels you, something you don't want to see. There is no ill will there. It's just a sense of something you don't want to have anything to do with. Yeah, or you see some unpleasant sight, a waste dump. Oh, I don't want to see the waste dump. You smell the waste dump and it smells terrible. Oh, let's go away from here. You have aversion to that. You want to move away from that sensual object. That's what aversion means, according to I think the proper way of using it, according to dictionary, is that. But many people use aversion almost as a synonym of ill will. It's very commonly used like that, it seems, in our society. But ill will actually means that you don't like somebody. Yeah, it means that you want badness for the other person. Yeah, you are ready to tell them off. It's a state of anger. Ill will is really anger. It's the same thing as anger. And anger is quite different from being averse to something. Yeah, aversion is just pushing something away, whereas ill will or anger is a much more involved state. It's a much more dangerous state, if you like. So they are actually quite different as far as I'm concerned.
Is the Dharma statement, be your own island, the same stage as meditate independently?
Yes, it's the same thing. Yeah. So when you go to the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, the long discourse of the Buddha, number 16, where the Buddha talks, is the last days of the Buddha before his passing away. That's where he's giving kind of the last message to the monks and the nuns and the lay people how to exist after he passes away. He says there, that's where he says, live as an island unto yourself. Yeah, be your own refuge. Take the Dhamma as your refuge, be your own refuge. Have no one else as a refuge. And then he says, how do you do that? And he says the way to do that is to practice Satipatthana, what we're talking about now. That's how you do it. Why is that being a refuge unto yourself? And the reason why it is a refuge unto yourself is because when you go within, you let go of the world outside, you find peace within, happiness within. You are self-contained. You're no longer dependent on the world outside. Yeah, and that is like being your island unto yourself, independent. Yeah, exactly the same thing as being independent, as you say. And you become self-sufficient in your meditation practice. And that's a wonderful thing because it gives you a sense of strength when you are independent in this way. It gives you a sense of security and safety because you no longer rely on all of these uncertainties in the world outside. It's a wonderful thing when that happens. So you meditate, and the deeper that meditation is, the deeper is the sense of refuge. If you attain a state of real samadhi and jhana, it's a very, very powerful refuge. You know that you are completely independent of the world outside. Wow, what a wonderful thing that is. And then you really understand what is going on. And you not only are you independent in the way that you don't rely on external things, but you're also independent in the way that you start to understand the Dhamma. You start to be able to see for yourself. Yeah, the final independence comes when you are a stream winner, because when you are a stream enterer, then of course you know the Dhamma and you are completely independent, but you have gone a long way towards independency merely by going within, enjoying the meditation, being peaceful, finding all the bliss and the joy inside of you.